Now in this video, we're going to take a look at an effect that you can do really quickly and easily just using layer styles. And it's something we've all seen before. It's a collection of scattered photos that really kind of makes up one whole image, but it looks like it's made up of a whole bunch of little photos. That effect, some people I've seen take and pull each little area of the photo and then make a new layer and put it on there. And that certainly can take forever. But you can utilize layer styles in a very interesting way to do that effect in no time at all. So here I have an image of this gentleman on this textured background here. Now, I want to take this image, or take the subject and first extract him from the background. Normally you wouldn't. If you've got the subject on a simple background, then you could just go to defining the pattern. But in this case, I want to go ahead and pull him from the background because I want to do something, I want to do this on this background texture here. So let's go ahead and use the quick selection tool and make a quick selection of the subject here. And let's go ahead and just use the magic wand tool. I'm just going to hold down the option key and subtract the selection area between the arms here, and then of course down here in the area of the legs there. There we go. So I'm not worried about a super precise selection. Let's go ahead and just kind of clean this up just a little bit. Maybe clean that up area around the fingers there. It's not going to be super critical, but there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that area, that selected area, to a new layer. And so now our subject is extracted on its own layer. I'm going to go into the Edit menu and go down here and choose Define Pattern. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make this pattern, let's go ahead and name it Guy on Texture. And now that's defined as a pattern now. So I'm going to turn that extracted layer off and go ahead and reselect the original background layer. I'm going to go ahead and grab my lasso tool here in the toolbar, and we're just going to draw a very loose selection around this subject. Kind of include some of the shadow area there. There we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and press Shift-Delete, and it's going to pull up my fill window here. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this to contents to content aware, and then go ahead and leave the mode to normal and opacity at 100%. Now I'll go ahead and click OK, and it's going to do it's going to look at the background area, and it's going to fill in the selected area as best it can with that information. Didn't do it too bad of a job. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. But I am going to go ahead and remove the color. Now, elsewhere in this course, I removed the color of an image by simply just pressing Shift-Command-U for a simple desaturate. In this case, I'm going to do it differently by making sure my default colors are set by pressing D, and then go under the image menu to adjustments and choosing gradient map. And that's going to force the image to black and white and help blend the elements together a little bit better. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer, and then we're just going to go ahead and get the marquee tool. I'm just going to get the rectangular marquee tool here. And I'm just going to draw a box roughly in the area where the head of our subject was right here. Now, on that empty layer that's selected, I'm going to go ahead and press Shift-Delete, and we're just going to give this a base 50% gray fill, normal 100%. There we go. Okay. Zoom in a little bit more here so you can see. All right. So we've got the small box with the gray fill. I'm going to go ahead and deselect it. So I'm going to go into the Layer Style menu now. Let's go into the Layers panel. So go to Layer, and we're going to choose Pattern Overlay. Let's make sure we get that. There we go. Pattern Overlay. Now, you'll locate in the pattern menu, it's the very last pattern that's been defined. So just click on the little thumbnail here and just locate the pattern that was defined right there. And you want to make sure that this link with layer, normally by default it will be checked on. But go ahead and uncheck that so it unlinks this pattern to the original layer. And then go ahead and, just for good measure, click Snap to Origin so it makes sure it goes back to the original position that it was already defined in. And let's go ahead and add a couple of more effects to this. So that's all we need to do for the pattern overlay part of it. What I am going to do is go ahead and add a stroke. Let's do a white stroke fill, and we'll set the size to 5 and the position to inside. I'm going to go ahead and leave the stroke color to white, and that looks pretty good. And I'm also going to add a drop shadow here. Just a very small, subtle amount of shadow there, just to give it just a tiny bit of a sense of depth there. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now we have applied that pattern style to our little shape that we created here. But now if I go and grab that element and move it around, you'll notice that the image stays in place. And that's what unchecking that link with layer does. It allows you to move the shape around, and the subject's going to stay in its position. But here's the other thing. Remember, we extracted this subject before we defined it as a pattern. So you'll notice that we see the gray background of the original shape behind the subject. Well, what I'm going to do is go over here to the layers menu and just go to this fill setting and just go use the scrubby slider and just bring that to 0. And then now you'll see that transparent background. Because we defined the subject as a pattern on a transparent background, it recognizes that as transparent. But we needed to make our shape invisible, and that just leaves the style visible, and now we can see our subject through the box there. So now what I'm going to do is just going to rotate this box a little bit, and now just hold down the Option key and just click and drag down, and it will create a duplicate of that shape with the same layer style applied, and you can just move these elements around now. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to make numerous duplicates of this shape and just continue to rotate them at various angles. But you'll notice, because we've defined our subject on a transparent background, we're getting a rather interesting result here as the way it blends with the rest of the image, as well as with the original background itself. So we're getting some pretty interesting results here. And this takes it a step further than the way I did this effect once before, in that I just simply defined the image, the original image, as a pattern without extracting it or doing anything like that. But doing it this way actually adds a little something interesting to it, because you see the elements of the subject that are defined, but when where you're not seeing the subject, you're not seeing the original background, but the background that's behind the subject on that background layer. In fact, if I were to turn off that background layer, you'd see the transparency right through there. So a rather interesting result you can get with this, being able to define the image as a pattern and then applying it as a layer style. Now notice this effect would probably take quite a while if you were to go and pull the image apart in various ways. But now also remember, you can change the order of the layers as to what boxes are going to be visible on top. Because remember, each element is on its own layer with that same layer style applied. And then you can move them around and just get various areas kind of showing through. And again, I'm just command clicking on these. When you have the move tool selected, if you don't have auto select checked on, which I don't like, because sometimes it'll just select something I don't mean to select. So I'll go ahead and hold down the command key, and that temporarily activates auto select. So you can just command click on a shape and move it around or scale it. Now all these are the same size up to this point, but I'm going to go ahead and scale this one down and just get something rather interesting there. But just really simply defining an image as a pattern, whether it's extracted or not, and then being able to go in there and apply it via layer styling and have the flexibility to change it and manipulate it any way you want.